everyone, and welcome to RezoCast episode 159. This is Lego, and I've got with me Hove, Triton, and our special guest from Team Resolute, returning guest, Wendler. How's it going, man? Thanks for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me again, as always. We're having a great technical time today. So
yeah.
Really
Wendler's actually calling in from his phone. We had some, but he's actually, if you're reading the podcast version, the audio version, you probably won't tell difference because that'll be probably the normal recording. But I just want to say, first off, I love how your first response was a noise very similar to the noise you made pre-starting the podcast a second ago. It was like a moo or something, but this time you were like wasn't it like kind of a similar noise, Hope? Did you hear that?
Sorry, I was too busy thinking about the reason that Wendler's not on his computer, because he had a rough night this weekend, and in his sleep he drunk walked and peed on his computer, and it stopped
I'm actually in Narnia right now. I'm calling you from
what?
Narnia. We're live from Narnia, so.
Oh, well, I feel like I've got a speakeasy going in my house right now. I just felt like I needed a drink to, prepare for whatever Wendler has in store for us with his PvP rant.
Ooh, that's
what he said.
Maybe I'll get moonshine pickles.
Last week it was things got a little crazy, so I don't want to go too strong. But Wendler, how was your week in gaming, Destiny? How you been, man? What's been going on?
Destiny I've been kind of taking a break from for a little bit. I got into Death Stranding, which, in my opinion, is probably up there with Game of the Year talks.
Wow.
It's probably one of the best single-player games I've played in the past decade. No exaggeration. So if it goes on sale at all, I would highly suggest picking it up. But other than that, I'm just dealing with some stuff IRL, job related, getting situated there. So,
well, funny story about Wendler coming on that I wanted to wait till the podcast. I actually completely forgot that I asked him to be on until he texted me and said, like, I'm on this week, right? And I was like, yeah, totally, man.
It was funny because I thought y'all had planned this or something.
Well, we did.
Of all the PvP
well, we
stuff.
both talked, but the thing is, with Hove saying that, is I literally forgot until 3 hours ago, and I texted him. I was like, "It was this week, right?" And then he was like, "Yeah, sure." And I was like, "Yep, you don't fucking remember either." That's
well, to be fair, the reason that happened is because I hadn't talked to Wendler in probably a couple months. I mean, maybe tweets or something, but I hadn't spoken to him in a while. And randomly one morning, it really weird turn of events. I happened to wake up at 4:45 in the morning, to go to the bathroom or something. Something woke me up. And while I was up, I got a phone call from somebody, and I'm on the phone talking to them. And then I get a text, and that was on one phone. And then on my other phone, long story, all of a sudden I get a text, and it's 5:15 on a random Tuesday morning. And I even said to her, I was like, who the fuck, if I'm talking to you, who the fuck is texting me right now? And I go over to my phone, and it's fucking Wendler. And it just says, clown. And I was like, what do you want? Why are you texting me right now?
I remember this story.
Yeah.
And not only that, but I guessed, Hove said later, he was like, guess who texted me this morning? We were playing PUBG that night or something. He's like, guess who texted me this morning? And I was like, Wendler. And he was like, yes! How did you know? I just guessed it immediately. I don't know why. I just assumed.
So at some point, half asleep at 5 a.m., I asked Wendler to come on the podcast and then forgot about it.
And I was like, sure.
And this was a few weeks ago. This was 2 weeks ago, probably?
Yeah, roughly, yeah.
And then I just, no offense, I'm not even trying to be a dick, I just totally forgot. And I was like, we're not going to have a guest this week. Oh, that's so all right. And then he texted me, was like, I'm on this week, right? Uh-huh. Yeah, definitely, man.
Well, speaking of the podcast, just in general, we are a Destiny theme podcast, just out of the clan Team Resolute. And that is also why we've got Wendler on this week as well. Also a member of Team Resolute. All Resolute people this week, which is cool. But yeah, we talk about Destiny. We talk about our weeks in gaming and just what's going on in the game in general. And this week, you know, Wendler, you were talking about trying out Death Stranding. For me, this week I actually helped my third person make it to 5500 top of comp this week, so that was a fun journey. I thought I would only ever do like 2100 helps, you know, and so to help people get to 5500 felt pretty cool. I like a lot that's going on right now, and I'm sure we'll get into more PvP stuff later. But one other thing that I did this week was I finally got to try 980 Nightfall and actually made it through Pyramidion doing that, and that was crazy. Like, I did not expect it to be just so insane. And it was very, they told me, they prefaced it with like, this is going to be one of the hardest things that you ever do in PvE Destiny. And I was like, okay, whatever. And then immediately got one shot by something. I was like, okay, it's like that. It's like D1 Nightfall again. So that was fun to experience those things.
Yeah, the 980s, especially Pyramidion, like, they don't mess around at all with the champions that you got to run into.
Yeah,
you're a champion.
Yeah, and the way you have to coordinate with all the like different mods for this season to take it down, it's pretty cool. Like the way you have to use teamwork in your weapon loadout and make sure everybody has the right elements and everything. It was fun.
Can we talk about how excited I am to watch Triton's cat running around in the background? This is great.
Dude, they're going nuts. They're
I'm serious.
in here.
That isn't like I'm enjoying this thoroughly. He poked his head in. He poked his head in, opened the door a little bit, and then ran away. It was great.
It's like a mini game.
Now they're fighting and running around.
Well, Hove, how was your week this week?
Dumb.
It's a good start.
I don't know.
Yeah,
it's
great.
Work's busy. Today I actually went and sat down at the car dealership and talked over some stuff, and it looks like I'm just gonna, starting tomorrow, I'm just gonna buy out my lease because my lease is up this month. So I'm just gonna buy my current car, which made the most sense. But I went in there thinking I'm gonna get something shiny and new, like a child, like a small child, and then I decided it wasn't.
Wait, and then you're gonna donate me your Audi?
I'm buying it
for free. You're gonna donate it to me for free?
Sure, come on over.
Yep. Already driving it.
You have driven it.
I have, indeed.
But that's about it. Nothing else going on.
Yeah, lots of life stuff.
I'm boring. No, not even that. I mostly just sit around and watch Netflix.
Hey, there's a lot going on streaming right now. Yeah. Disney Plus came out this week, you know, so.
Yeah.
Well, this
I
doesn't have anything to do with
the Disney Plus. As part of my week, I did watch. My wife and I watched The Mandalorian yesterday for the. I think I didn't realize though that you couldn't binge it, so I kind of tried to avoid Twitter in general, so I didn't get caught with a spoiler. And then also I've been spending more time probably on my professional Twitter where people don't probably talk about that a lot. But I didn't. As we got to the end of episode 1, I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna definitely watch the second episode. And then there's like 5 minutes worth of credits in like 3 languages, and then you don't even get a preview. And I was a little, okay, well, this is how it is, and that's fine. You know, it's fine. I'll just wait till next week or whenever I guess the week is. But we did watch that for Disney Plus. Destiny also looks like I'm joining the other 3 people here, or 3 of the 4. Didn't have a big week at all in Destiny. I'll tell you, I play Magic Arena a ton. I knew this would happen when I downloaded it.
Wow.
I went to a comic book store and the guy just gave me like 2 promo cards from like a pre-release and then one from, or like 2 pre-releases. So I got like 6 packs and I was able to do a draft and it was all free. I'm like, oh, okay, well, it's free. And then, you know, you have to play a bunch to unlock these decks and then they're like not that competitive. So I'm like, well, this sucks. So I just grind the crap out of it to keep opening packs so that I could play it. So I play a ton of Magic Arena right now. I'm trying to get to Mythic, so I think if you get in like the top 1,200 people, you get invited to a tournament that I won't attend in person anyways, but it would be cool to get invited to it, so I'm grinding through the ranks there, and realize that since the one thing I do on my Twitter right now is complain about the land draws that I get in Magic Arena, which are just statistically improbable, and I feel like I would like to speak to someone about that, but they're just not, you just can't keep getting the same like 3 combinations of land. It's just not feasible.
So I feel about really some RNG Destiny stuff.
Pissed off about when that was happening. So I've been playing a lot of Magic Arena, tweeting it, and obviously, you know, it's very un-Destiny related, but a couple people turns out have played Magic over the years, so I've had a couple interactions, but no, haven't been back to Destiny. I think the other thing is the time in which I play, I love PC. Hope and I talked about this at the end of the podcast. We've talked to you about it, Lego, about the going PC. Like, I love playing on PC, but I think a lot of my friends outside of the clan ended up being on PS4. So, like, I just don't have the network of people that if I get 3 hours to play during the day to do anything. So I'm really just under like a better play the 3 Gambit games.
Cross save, Triton. I told you.
I don't have Shadowkeep on PS4 though.
You can still play though, like most of the like a lot of the content.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I could, but I mean,
do.
Like, I don't know.
I do think the game right now is at one of the toughest points for people that don't have a lot of time to play. Because, for example, like TV and myself, we used to play with Zach Levine all the time. And
wow, talk about Wenny name dropping right off the bat.
He's having a good season, by the way.
Yeah, but normally like he would hit us up and like we would jump in and we would get him caught up to like whatever, or we would just play whatever.
Yeah.
But recently we just came to the same conclusion, like just kind of referencing Triton's point about there not being enough time to realistically play, where it's better if we just like play Apex than it would be to like kind of get caught up through Destiny with all there is to do now. So I feel the pain on that.
What do you like? What are the activities that you guys would think of playing? Because I kind of feel that, but I'm also playing like the most. I guess the things that I would want to do in Destiny are the more time-consuming things. Like if you play comp, you kind of get in a rhythm and you really want to like keep going. Or if you play like those 989 falls I mentioned, like that took us 45 minutes or something to do that, or what is it? If you do a raid, that kind of stuff takes a long time. But as far as like leveling up for those things, isn't it just like casual play? Like pretty much anything gets you up to those levels for pinnacle activities?
Yes, but in our case, it's different than someone like, I guess, Triton's case, for example.
Wow.
Well, because I'm not saying that Triton is incompetent, but we play at a more hardcore pace.
Wow.
My thing is, I'm not really playing with a lot of people. Like I'll sign on.
Yeah,
and
like
there'll be people doing, like to Wendler's point, there'll be people doing activities that I really wasn't gear ready for a while. So like now I am at 950, so maybe there's some. But before I'd sign on, like I guys mentioned to you guys, like half the clan was 960 when I was like 920, and I was just like, well, everyone's doing something
and at
else.
That point,
I mean,
yeah, and at like that point, most people really don't want to cycle back again.
And I don't blame anyone for it.
And do something that they've not like brute forced, but something that they've gone through the trials of over again, you know?
Gotcha.
But,
yeah. I guess for me, some of the content that I really like doing right now, like two of the things that I think I talked about it last week a little bit on the community questions. It was like, what are you going for? Like some of the stuff. And it's, for me, I love going back to the moon to get better drops on all the moon weapons. Like I still want a better lullaby with subsistence. I still want a sniper with fire
and multi-kill clip. You mean?
Yeah, multi-kill clip and stuff like that. A grenade launcher with what is it? Full court, that kind of stuff. And spike nades, because I didn't get one with spike nades. But that stuff you can go back and play with anybody, and same with PvP stuff. But I get it for, you know, if you want to go to the dungeon, for instance, like that's pretty tough. Like you have to be at 950. So I get that. But even while I was grinding up to this point, one of the things that I really liked about Shadowkeep is even if I played for just a little bit of time, like that put XP towards my like seasonal artifact, which gave me like light level or whatever. Like it just felt like whatever I was doing, I was kind of making progress on something. So even if I was playing by myself or whatever, I was still like, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
I
don't know. I know, you know, Wendler with his famous friends doesn't have the time to play with us, you know, mere mortals. But I mean, I found like I had plenty of time. I was playing comp with two of my friends, not comp, you know, survival, and one of them, like, things have really slowed down for him at work, so he has a lot more time. But yeah, I was like, hey, Will Smith and Robert Downey Jr., do you guys want to play some comp today? And they had time, so I don't know.
Well, like I think it's a different.
Oh,
I guess no, like it's got nothing to do with people, but Yeah, I hate you guys.
No, like, honestly, I mean, even though
Like,
I don't, I know this is started as it.
Listen,
but when,
yeah.
like, I get where you're coming
the
from.
the perspective is like, if we have 2 hours, like if he's
Mhm.
whatever in between, and that applies to anyone. Like if you have someone that's coming in that's, all right, I have 2 to 3 hours. What do we do? And when you look at, like, for example, Lego, you can jump on and play comp. You're helping people with comp, but that's not
Mhm.
exactly like leveling and going through that
Yeah.
whole scenario. And even if you did want to moon grind for specific weapons, you still have to get people caught up. They're probably going to want to be doing somewhat the same thing that you're doing, which means you got to get the essences then. And like, there's just, I'm not saying it's impossible, but
Yeah.
I'm
No,
just saying it's a lot more time consuming in that sense.
I actually agree with you. And 2 points. One, I just wanted to fuck with you because not only did it start with, yeah, I mean, when I play the game with my famous YouTuber friend
That's
and
not what
and
I
no, just listen. So you immediately came out of the gate with, yeah, no, I know when I play with my big YouTuber friend and our NBA friend, we do this and this and this. Then you followed up with, but we're different. We're not like Triton.
No, that's not at all what I meant.
But
No,
wait, I am really curious. I know that we are different, and so I'm curious what Triton's take is. Is it just the friends for you, like not having people on at the same time? Is that the main thing, or is it actually what
That's
you're
a
doing
part of
within
it.
that?
I mean, and I know Hove agrees with Wendler, and I do too. Like, I understand that. And also, I mean, the game is at a point, right, where, I mean, you're not really having the wide span that you did necessarily in Destiny 1. So, I mean, and there's different people at different stages. We all agree that they should be catering to the people that play hardcore. So if you're here and there's only, this many people play, I mean, it's one of those things where there's not a lot of people doing what I'm trying to do that are still playing this game actively all the time. And that doesn't mean it's all they hate it or whatever. It's just, there's other options, things like that. People come and go, so it's not a big deal. But yeah, it's mainly the friends, because if I hop on, I'm going to be like, well, I need to get, and I was under the power grind forever. I'm going to have to play 3 games of Gambit. Like, I'm not even going to bother to ask people to do that. Wilson and I were going to do the Haunted Forest like 2 weeks ago, and that just didn't work out. And that's a new event, and it really wasn't light level specific, right? I don't think that it was like you couldn't hop in there initially on day 1 or 2 and be crippled by. And at that point, I was at 950. So not playing PvP is probably a big thing. There's a lot of people who probably want to do that, or there's people in our clan who really want to raid, and for the longest time, I wasn't ready. So I get all those things, but at the same time, year whatever we're in Destiny 4 or 5, I just playing a lot of Gambit and then playing 3 strikes, making sure I use the same subclass, barely being able to do that.
It gets old.
Yeah, it's hard, especially if you don't have anyone to talk to in that. So I think that's mostly it. I still appreciate where the game's at. I appreciate the things they do. Love the gunplay. We talked about that last week with Rhythm, but I think it just comes down to 3 games of Gambit is rough. Like, almost, if we lose that first one, I'm like, please don't even try to win the second one, guys. Like, just let's go ahead. Let's just move on. Don't let this go to 3 rounds. And, it is what it is. I don't really tweet that I hate Gambit, but, I mean, like Wendler said, I have 2 hours, and I can't spend an extra 15 minutes doing another Gambit round.
Yeah.
To clarify, too, like, I wasn't saying that Triton, like mentioned
Dude,
that.
I was just fucking with you.
But
yeah, come on, Wendler.
It's just...
You just phrased it really badly.
Yeah.
Also, the Bulls shouldn't be 4 and 7. Like, in all honesty.
But anyway, even
cannot be 4 and 7 though.
Real quick, 2 seconds of sports talk. They shouldn't have lost 4 games in the fourth quarter in the last 5 minutes either. But that's is what it is.
Young, but I mean, Levine's not that young at this point. Markin's really good. Wendell Carter's really good. Way better than the Magic. They should be way better than the Magic.
So anyway, even when I was agreeing with Wendler before, it wasn't even necessarily you two had 2 different points that aren't mutually exclusive. And I agree with both of you. And actually, Triton, you just you only mentioned this specifically briefly, but it's something that I know we had talked about going all the way back into D1 with what was going to come with D2. And I know it was something that I had started to feel a long time ago. And I don't think it'll ever be a huge issue that completely turns off the community. But we have mentioned many times over the last couple years that as much new good content as there is and all these different things they're doing, for all intents and purposes, you're still playing the same game that we've been playing since 2014. And eventually, like I said, I don't think there'll ever be a point where everyone's like, this is fucking boring now. But you're going to slowly... You'll pick people up, too. So I'm not saying this is, killing the game. Don't get me wrong. It's just a small thing. You're going to have people who are like... even if they don't consciously think, I don't want to do this, I've been doing it for so long, that you just kind of like I think Wendler said, like, it gets old.
Yeah.
And it just feels, and there's nothing you can do about that. They're doing a great job developing the game that they have, but it's still the same game. It's still missions and strikes, so I love the story. Like, I absolutely love the story, but the gameplay just,
there is.
I don't have the drive to grind it anymore.
Yeah,
it's daunting. It can be daunting when you're behind.
It's a lot of people that. I'll let you go. Sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say, just to the other side of because we've talked about it before, and I definitely see Ho's point in that, and I just want to add to it that there are certain things in the game that I appreciate them adding in that are different than. While I know it's the same gameplay and shooting the same kind of ad, but I don't do strikes anymore. Like, I don't, like, I know I said I did the 90 and Nightfall because that's so different and implied so many different mechanics, but I don't play Gambit. I don't play strikes. And I'll do the moon stuff because I can kind of do what I want to get those objectives done. You can play any activity. But the things that I do and that I really appreciate is stuff like the dungeon, like Shattered Throne and the Pit is like two new, like, this is kind of a new mini raid type thing they've designed. And dude, I'm telling you, because you haven't played the dungeon, right?
And and I get like that they are fun as an activity, but again, once you do it and you see this new thing, you're still just you're dropping into this zone and you're shooting the enemies with the guns and doing the thing, and like I said, it's not a bad thing. It's not a complaint. It's just the way it is.
Right. Yeah, and I agree with you. I'm just saying, for me, like, there's a way that you can, if you enjoy the, and I'm not telling anybody that they have to do this. If you're done, for a while, take, like Wendler said, taking a break, playing Death Stranding, that's a great way to do something different for a while. You can come back to Destiny when you're ready. But for me, like, sometimes I'll go play another game and I'm like, I really just want to be playing the gunplay of Destiny right now. And activities like the dungeon and the secret missions, especially too, like for Whisper and for Outbreak, those are like types of things that really reinvigorate like my desire to play the game and the way I interact with it. And like soloing the dungeon, like I want to go and do that every week now to try and get the solo flawless. I'm not going to try that every night, obviously. Like, for me, that's not, I would get kind of bummed out about failing so much. Even though I am like a push to get it done kind of guy, I also just, it's something that I can try every week. And if I fail, it's okay. There's next week, kind of thing. So I just wanted to like really throw out there that I appreciate that they're slowly adding in these different kinds of content other than just the strikes and Gambit and stuff like that. And I really like that. One other real quick thing is that I'm having kind of the opposite problem of you, like the same problem, Triton, but the opposite way around with my friends. Cause I feel like most of Resolute and my Resolute friend group has all moved to PC. Like every time I get on, there's like 3, really close people that I know on maybe, and they're already playing together or something, and then most of the other people are just like comp friends that I've made. Some people from RezoCast sometime I've been playing with lately, got Bagu his NF this week. So stuff like that.
The rapper?
But it's been funny because it's been like, the opposite of your problem, Triton. Like, I feel like because I'm still on PS4, I'm missing out on so much PC community stuff.
Well, I mean, like, I think there's so many people on PS4 from our clan, or PC from our clan, which is great, but like when they're saying, they might be doing other things, or, I mean, look, we have 100 people, you're going to maybe line up with maybe 8 to 10 at most. That seems great if for schedule wise. And I think, even within our podcast here, I think the last time the 3 or 4 of us have ever played together, maybe like once a year. So, I mean, most of my friends, honestly, that fit into my schedule during the day, like whether it was Matt Grundy for PS4 or some of the, his friends, he's always been a dedicated listener to us, or, even like Kirsty Rapson was someone I played a lot because she was in England. And so like when I played during the day, I mean, they're still on PS4. I think Matt's on PC, but, I've not been able to connect with him. So I think that's kind of where my thing is the clan's great. And anytime you've asked for something, the clan's always responsive. But again, if I'm going to be like, well, I really need a powerful engram level 2 or whatever that is, which is the Gambit games, and I see everyone in the raid, it's like a little bit like, well, are you going to put it in our chat right now to get out of your raid to help me suck at this game mode?
I can't even get Triton to fit me into his real life schedule for lunch. So
what are you talking about? I mean, I tried to get you to come to a game like last weekend, by the way.
There's other reasons too why I'm taking my break from Destiny, but regarding mainly like PvP, but That's for
We'll get to it, buddy.
that's for that.
Well, I do want to get to some of this stuff though.
Real quick, I just
go
want to
ahead.
ask Wendler, did you get your words, by the way, Wendler, that I texted you?
I do have the words yes.
Okay, good. Just making sure.
For those new to the podcast, we do play a game called Word Insertion. So if you randomly hear something that doesn't quite make sense and you're wondering where it came from, it might have been one of these words that have no meaning. It's like, you know,
They're real words. They
What are
have
the real
meaning.
words like.
well, not the words, just the reason for throwing it out has no meaning other than randomness and a challenge mini
Craft
game
them in
for
pretty
ourselves.
well, I think sometimes. I mean, sometimes there's just a slur of everyone uses one of them real quick.
Yeah, I saw like what you're saying,
just,
Lego. Though, just going back a point is you kind of feel like you're, like everyone's moved to PC. They've gotten out into the PC world, and you're like the prisoner of Azkaban. You're still like stuck on PS4.
Yeah,
no one's
yeah.
there.
Which
yeah.
you know, I feel okay about. It's not like, you know, when Triton took his break, he was kind of like Rip Van Winkle. You know, we weren't sure like how
he
late
just
was gonna be when
slept.
he reemerged.
He just slept for a long time.
Yeah,
Well, I had a
so
semester studying marine biology. I was really trying to hone in on that, so it was tough. I mean, those breaks are tough. You're like living
That's
that
intense,
college
man.
life, eating Chef Boyardee and trying to just grind down on your studies. It was a hard time.
That's you just.
God damn.
It was
tough out there,
a couple
man.
months.
It's hard out here for a pimp.
I kind of wish that we had like the gambit noise. We could just throw in the dings, you know, like the drifter just doing a ding whenever we hit our word. Yeah, that would be.
I wish we could skip that though. Like again, when
It's a
you're
real
trying to
flavor
get
of love, you know.
Every second you could save in that mode helps.
So before we go to, you know, the TWAB and all the PvP stuff, real quick, Festival of the Lost, this is the last week of that going on. I know that's kind of a part of the TWAB too, but it's also been something we've been experiencing for the past few weeks. What did you all think about the event like this year, you know, because it's kind of been something that's been I guess looked down on in the community at times, like Festival of the Cost, you know, all this stuff. And this year it's kind of is like similar to Festival of Cost kind of things, but I don't really look at it that way. But it has a lot of those elements of you need to buy these things, but a lot of it's available for Bright Dust. There's ways to earn Bright Dust. I haven't seen that much negative on my timeline on Twitter, at least. What do you guys think?
I think they need a giant Mothman mask. God damn.
That okay? Like
like a
word
prophecy.
There's a word insertion there, but
Like a
Well,
big,
no, I-
like a
say-
big
you can't
oscillating
say
one.
that It's one of the words.
yeah, just a giant Mothman and then a giant lamp. I feel like would be appropriate.
A giant lamp.
Yeah, moths like lamps, dude.
Oh, okay.
I don't
Well,
think the Mothman behave. Like, I don't think he's just a big moth, though.
Are you sure?
Richard Gere told me so when I watched the movie. Isn't that who was in that? Did I ever tell you the time I ate dinner next to Richard Gere by accident?
Really?
Yeah.
No.
But,
By accident.
Yeah, we were at the same restaurant.
Yeah. So, were you not supposed to
For-
sit there? Like, was he in like a reserve section? Sorry, Wendler. Never mind. We'll get.
No, you're good.
We'll talk about Hove later.
Maybe I was in the reserve section too. Maybe I'm like a jukebox
Maybe
hero.
one to sit next to Hope. You know.
Well, I mean, we are name dropping tonight, so I mean, maybe.
Yeah, I know.
That really did
uh,
happen though. It was in DC.
Though I didn't see anything really negative with Festival of Lost either. I mean, they said all the new stuff was dust, and that the old stuff was silver, and that everything would cycle. I mean, I never really cared for
Yeah.
this event personally, anyway.
Okay.
I've just kind of always looked at it, even in its initial debut, I've always looked at it as like cool for people that want that kind of thing. I mean, Eververse is its like own separate argument that's kind of gone on right now regarding Eververse and the Bright Dust economy and
yeah.
specific things related to that, which I don't think that relates to, you know, this specific event, at least this time around, but I've always just kind of looked at it as it is what it is. Cool
Yeah.
if you like it, whatever if you don't, you know.
So for me, with the Bright Dust cycling stuff, I think it's been fine. You can even get like the skeleton armor set. It's like 6,000 Bright Dust, which is a lot, but it costs a lot of silver too. So it's kind of nice that there's an option to get it if you want it. And then also the haunted forest is a pretty cool thing. Like, I liked in D1 like spooky trials better, like as like an added PvP kind of event to it. But I loved I know we have momentum control too. But I do like the haunted forest is kind of just this, like, at least for like the first week or two, it's kind of fun to run in there and just see how far you can get. And I appreciate them putting a pinnacle reward behind getting to the ninth round or whatever you call it. And that was fun. It's fun, like going in there with, we went in there with a few Rezo people and knocked it out one week, and that was really fun because it felt like something that I needed a team to go and do instead of just blueberries randomly, doing whatever. And so I like that aspect of it. I like that there's just a little bit of, redecorating the tower. It's just kind of different for a little while. I thought that I would appreciate it more being around for 3 weeks. I'd be like, oh yeah, cool, it's around for 3 weeks, but I didn't really care that like around this time I'm like, okay, I'm kind of ready for it to be done, and move on.
They actually put more effort into redesigning the actual haunted forest this time around, which is kind of nice to see going back in. But yeah, outside, I mean, maybe 3 weeks is too long. Maybe it should have been like a 2-week event, like, because I felt this. I mean, even after the first week, I was kind of just like, cool. I mean, it's got pinnacle rewards for it. That's cool, but
it's interesting because there's a lot of people who make a petition to keep haunted forest around all year, but that kind of loses some of the value and like how fun it is for that week or two. Like it makes it fun that it's a yearly thing rather than just all the time. So
yeah, for sure.
I like that. I appreciate it more than I used to, at least.
For sure.
Triton Hove, did you all have any more thoughts on the event?
I mean, considering I did nothing in it, minus a couple jumping around and getting a couple of those moats around the tree.
Oh yeah,
I do generally like the event. It's just
I do too. I think it's a fun one.
Yeah.
I have to make Mythic and Magic Arena, or I'm gonna lose my mind. So like that's
you already lost your mind.
And
I was eating all those big Cheetos earlier on, so I might be losing my mind.
It adds value to the game for later on for like people who do machinima and stuff like that. Like just people who, because you have the masks around to do movie of the week stuff. So that's always fun.
It's my favorite. It's my favorite band.
Movie of the week.
Rage Against the Machinima.
That's a nice force there, bud.
Well,
Hope hates himself for that one.
It wasn't even a word. I just came to my mind. I was like, this is the worst joke I could tell.
So other than Festival of Lost, jumping into the TWAB, we got some cool community stuff. We got the French and German community managers coming on, which is cool to see. Bungie branching out into those communities rather than just having, they kind of even made a point to mention, we created these different country Bungie Twitter accounts, but there weren't people behind them, really advocating for that community, or they were represented, just not people who were with them in that community. And so it's cool to see those people getting put into place, and that Bungie, it's a sign of how big the game is in just worldwide rather than just like the States or whatever. And we've always known that and felt that. It's just cool to have those areas represented more, so to have Bungie more spread out. I thought it was pretty cool.
Me too.
Yep.
After that, we get to the big stuff. We got some weapon changes. Recluse, One-Eyed Mask, Xenophage. These all got, Recluse and One-Eyed got nerfs. Xenophage got a 50% buff in PvE and like twice as much ammo in PvP. It's a pretty big buff there, but it felt necessary considering what I saw. I haven't used it yet, but
I don't even think there's really much to say about that one. It was needed. It was kind of
just underperforming. Yeah. It's gonna be a lot more valuable now, especially with Divinity. So
Divinity, or with like the grenades right now that do the extra damage, or tractor cannon, weapons of light, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that'll be really nice for PvE.
Y'all like the Recluse One-Eyed changes? Y'all feel like it turned out okay, what they decided to do? I saw everybody pretty much unanimously was like, Recluse, that's a great change, and One-Eyed, is that enough? That was kind of the vibes I was getting.
I've seen very differing. I've seen people that are happy with it, people that aren't happy with it. My thought, I I don't know. I would have liked to seen either, because there's health regen and an overshield, right?
Yes, it was instant overshield on kill, and your health would regen, but you would get the overshield immediately.
Right. I would have liked to have seen, and maybe it would have been too much, I don't know, but they still seem pretty powerful on their own. I would have liked to have seen either the health and shield side be gone, or the wall hack and damage side be gone. I mean, you're kind of getting like 4 perks with that, right? Like you were getting increased damage against that person, the wall hack, an overshield, and health regen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if you just split those into the like combat side and the like healing side and just cut one or the other, that's what I would have thought. But I mean, we'll see. It doesn't seem like it's going to be that much, really, right? Like, I don't know. We'll see.
My issue with it specifically was kind of towards that same sentiment, except my problem was always either the overshield had to go or the tracking had to go. I didn't really care too much as for the health return, because the health return was delayed over time, whereas the overshield was immediate.
Well, I'd be okay with them changing one another, but I'm just saying it.
Yeah.
So you like this then? You're good with just the overshield being gone?
I'm fine with this change right now. Yes, I'm happy with it, because like I said, I was either like my major frustration was either the tracking needed to just go and you just get overshield, and there would have to be some rework they would have to tie to that, obviously, as to how you would get an overshield, or the overshield portion would have to be ripped, which in my opinion, just thinking about this now, even clearly the overshield was the easier option for them to approach than it would be redesigning how to provide like the tracking. And
do you mean gameplay wise or like coding
game design wise?
Yeah,
probably design wise and maybe coding wise.
I would say because coding we'd all be guessing.
Yeah, but game design, I think that was probably the easier immediate route. I mean, you can go all day about, well, it took a year for them to even change, but that's whatever at this point. But yeah, I mean, we'll obviously have to see how everything plays out at the end of the day. If it's not enough, hopefully it doesn't take 3 months to approach. Like if it still ends up being a lock-in option for Titans, maybe the next step then at that point is, okay, we need to look at the tracking. But right now, I think it's more than sufficient to see how it will play out in these one-on-one battles. Because I've gone...
Go ahead. I thought you were done.
I was just going to say real quick, I've gone back and forth with some people, and they claim the exotic
Are they
is
superstars or NBA players?
Yes. They've claimed that the exotic helps be aggressive, but the problem is because of the tracking and the overshield you get, no one's really using the exotic to be aggressive. They're using it because they get the tracking and they can kind of just sit and make a play off whatever you do. So hopefully the overshield removes that a little bit, removes a little bit of that safety cushion of making a push like that. Or maybe it doesn't change anything at all. But regardless, I'm fine with it.
I guess my thought is, I look at it like, pretend we didn't have One-Eyed Mask, okay? I know it's hard to do, because we do. But you look at a lot of other exotics, and they do, this one thing. And it might be really strong, but it's generally one thing. Now, if we didn't have One-Eyed Mask, and I was like, hey, there's this exotic that if you get damaged by someone, you can see where they're at, and you get increased damage against them. Maybe it's not the best ever, but wouldn't you be like, okay, that could be useful. That could be a cool exotic. Also, if I was like, oh, here's another exotic where if you kill the person who killed you, you get health regen and an overshield. Also, not super great, but like...
It's solid.
It's solid. And they have all of those together. And that's where, like I said, why I could see splitting that down the middle and it still being okay. With, maybe it needed some reworks on how it worked. But I mean, just the offensive side of that, it's like it rewards you for taking damage, then it rewards you for being aggressive, and then it rewards you, like, it just keeps rewarding you, pretty much.
Yeah. It rewards you for the game that's already being played. It doesn't do anything that requires you to do something specific. It rewards you for doing something you already do, which is the big problem with it. It's very free. The other comparison that I hated, which a lot of people jump to, is the whole Foe Tracer comparison. I don't know if you've used Foe Tracer lately, But
Not
Foe
really.
Tracer has a range in which the tracking gives up. So not only is the tracking not as long, it's like 3 to 4 seconds. When that target gets out of a certain distance, that tracking is immediately off. It
Well-
doesn't stay tracked onto that person for
Not
that
only
full
that, but-
time period.
Like, that's an exotic, and then they don't also give you extra damage, an overshield, and health regen. Like, I don't
Yeah,
know. It
well,
just
Foe
feels like there's
Tracer-
so much.
Yeah, Foe Tracer gives you the small damage buff on the track target too, but it's nothing really considerate.
But well, either way, that's what I'm saying.
But
So,
it's a problem regardless. Like the percentage getting a damage buff, getting the overshield. Like regardless, it's a problem. I wasn't defending it with that. Case.
right. It
Yeah,
just
so yeah.
almost feels like it's an offensive and defensive exotic. Is
Yeah.
my big thing. Pick one.
Yeah.
I'm kind of in the middle. Like
That's
I'm
weird.
fine with this change.
I
I'm
never
glad
would've
they
thought
did
that.
something. Yeah, I know. But I also I feel like I'm swayed more towards Hove's side. Like I feel like it should do one thing or the other, not everything. But I do see at the same time how it's much easier to just take off the overshield and just limit it in that way versus because if you were to only make it the health regen thing and not the tracking and damage, then how do you do the tracking? Like you have to have the tracking to know who you're supposed to kill. You know what I mean? Unless they were, I don't know how you would do that.
You can just
so it
mark
creates-
them when they're in your view, so you know which guy it is.
Or
Yeah, but
maybe
there's
it
just nothing in
marks-
the game like that right now. So
Yeah, like they'd probably have to design something where like that player becomes
Mhm.
recognized if you die to them, and
yeah.
then maybe off respawn, like that player, the game just happens to know. Like it just seems so complicated.
It's
thinking
complicated.
about it.
Yeah.
So
So I could see them just taking out the health stuff altogether, but then I feel like they would have to buff the damage that you get from the tracking or after you kill them with tracking and stuff. I don't feel like tracking on its own would be enough. But maybe I don't know.
No, I
those
think
are
if
all
they got rid of the,
options.
I think if they got rid of the health side, I'd be fine with the tracking and the damage.
Would you use it if you were a Titan?
it would
I'm
be
not a
so
Titan.
situational for me.
That's
because
what I'm saying. though.
Yeah, I would use it.
I wouldn't be a fan of it getting a damage buff with tracking personally.
Okay.
If that's what they stripped it to was just tracking or OS, like I would not be happy if it had 7 seconds of tracking and then increased damage on that target.
Would you be fine with
I
it
wouldn't
if
be
it
a fan
was
of it.
just tracking?
The tracking alone with that information you get, I think is more than good enough. If
Okay.
people
Well-
choose to run it, especially with other Titan exotics that kind of perform that same utility aspect.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding then. You're saying you wouldn't want tracking and a damage buff that's too much?
Yes.
Because aren't you? And again, I'm not. I know I do this a lot, but I'm not giving you shit. Am I misunderstanding your original thing that you're okay with them just taking away the overshield because now it has tracking, a damage buff, and health regen?
Because the damage buff is inconsiderate. It's
Yeah,
near
it's
nothing.
not that
It's,
much.
it's, a
It's
very-
not a
it's not
very
very nice.
considerate. It's not very nice.
It's nothing that's like, oh shit.
Oh, so
get
what
a
you were
damage
saying
buff.
is you wouldn't want a bigger damage buff.
Yeah.
Correct.
Oh, okay. That's
Correct.
why I was trying to clarify.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I thought you were just like, I'm good with the tracking, the damage buff, and the overshield. But
No.
if it just had tracking and damage buff, way too much. That's why I was like,
Like I was just speaking on it because that's what
you
I
were
was
going on
at.
Lego saying a buffed
Yeah,
damage
I
buff.
Yeah.
Okay.
messed that up. Yeah.
No. That was just miscommunication, and I like to be clear here.
Thorough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crystal clear, like Crystal
Well,
Pepsi.
I think it's fine for now. I
was
I
terrible,
do
by the
think that
way.
it's still gonna be kind of a lot. But I'm glad they're not nerfing it to the ground either. I don't know. I feel like there's not that many Titan exotics.
They
that
need
are very
to circumcise the exotic.
exciting. Okay. Ding. I don't know.
I'm not sure you quite understand the outcome of circumcision.
I'm not sure that nerfs.
Yeah, just cut it off, man.
That's
That's a
not.
nerf?
No, that's
I
not.
don't know.
That's.
Yeah, that's
that's,
not.
I
I
don't
think
you
you're
need to
talking
go.
about castration.
No, that specific part just needs to go. It's not necessary.
As strange child walks into the room. Hi, young Triton.
Moving on. I got my words done.
Did y'all feel like the recluse?
Well, you're not supposed to
nerf
be
was
telling
fine?
people when.
They're
I don't care.
the wording on the Recluse nerf was a little confusing. I know Wendler had questioned it on Twitter, and I saw some other people as well. But we'll see.
Yeah, I got clarification on after that. So
Yeah.
It's just like kind of like a rampage kind of thing now.
yeah, so the specific time to kill changes are right now it's got the same time to kill to the body
As a shotgun.
regardless. So it's like
Right.
0.4 well, it's 0.47 to the body, and then like regardless, and then afterwards it goes to like a 0.6 to a 1.13 time to kill. So the time to kill is definitely changed from the respective change.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So it's a good
I-
change. more or
Yeah,
less.
I feel like it's fine. I feel like their goal for it, at least, I understand. Even if I don't understand completely the damage numbers behind the gun, I get that their goal is to reward precision headshots still, and not let it just be you can just spray everything and everything's super strong out of Recluse now.
It's generally what I do.
Yeah, so I feel like that's a good change. Without killing the gun, like I'm glad that they kept the Master of Arm perks where you can use any gun to make it proc. Because that was kind of the unique thing about the gun, and so if they keep
Right,
that,
they got to keep that.
yeah, then it makes it cool. So
The one thing I thought was interesting is I saw a couple people, and it's fine if you agree or disagree with these nerfs or whatever. But I saw a couple people using the Recluse as an example of why they should balance PvE and PvP separately because it was a PvP issue. But correct me if I'm wrong. I swear we had talked about like people had mentioned on here that it's not a problem. Like it's never a problem because to be used on someone in PvE, obviously. But I know a lot of people had said like there's no reason to use like it's so good at mobs. It was just clearly better than everything, right?
Well, it got an inherent buff too because they changed the precision damage to rank and file enemies, so that inherently buffed Master of Arms that much more because it doesn't trigger as precision damage. It triggers just as boosted damage that is precision damage. Which
so what you're saying is it's a good thing that they're making the damage buff more inconsiderate.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
just
I
checking.
agree with you, Hope. We had like Clyde on the other week who was like,
And I think Wilson has said it too.
Yeah, Wilson. He's like, I'm so sick and tired of running Recluse for everything, So I think everybody's cool with like, hey, let's switch it up for a little bit. And even if it's still really good, just to that people know that it got a nerf. Some people are just going to switch off it, even if they don't understand the numbers. They're going to be like, oh, well, it's not as good. I'm going to try using this other thing. And then at least it gets them off it for a bit, So I'm cool with it. I think it's great.
Yeah. I'm not about great. We'll see. But I think it was
we'll see,
needed
yeah.
in some way. But we'll see what happens.
It's a good step one, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think that covers all the at least nerfs and buffs we got in this, like what we know is upcoming for this next patch. I'm glad that not every Titan is going to be a speckled orangutan running at me with their one-eyed mask.
What the fuck is a speckled orangutan?
It just seemed appropriate for the one-eyed mask. And so there is one more thing that I'm really excited about that they mention here, though, and that is that Escalation Protocol armor drop changes are coming, which that has been one of my grinds every week is going, and it takes forever to get the armor key stuff from Anna Bray, and then after that you have to charge it all the way up, and then you get one drop a week that's completely random of armor, and that's the only drop of armor you get for that entire week for that character. And that's a big grind for one piece of armor a week. That could be the thing you're looking for. And even if it is the thing you're looking for, is it the element that you were looking for? Is it the stats, depending on what you're going for? So it's a very rare chance that you would get anything you want out of Escalation Protocol other than weapons. So I'm excited that they at least mention it, because that was one of the things that I did not think they were going to address. But it's just like, because it's such a small scope like problem, but it affects me in particular because I really want that Titan mark in Armor 2.0.
They Triple, I don't know if you saw Triple's tweet about Armor 2.0 suggestions, but he had a really good idea. Because right now, if just as a quick side point, if you want a good rolled armor piece, your only chances of getting something that's like plus 60 right now is from a pinnacle activity. So your EP, your Crucible, your basic Vanguard, you're not going to get anything there that's plus 60. But he had a good idea that based on your light level, there should be like a minimum stat roll that becomes available to you as you climb. So it makes everything in the pool more worthwhile and able to get. So like if you hit, 950, for example, the minimum roll you're going to get on anything going forward is 55. And then it's just random, obviously, what the stat distribution is for it. But at least you guarantee that it's going to be a good roll. Versus right now, you could even do pinnacle activities and you're getting something that's like 52. And it's like, why? Or if you really love the aesthetic of the Crucible armor, it's never going to break 55. So at that point, you're also like, well, if I'm going to be optimal, like I'm never going to use this. But that was just a good idea he had to help mitigate RNG a little bit.
What would be even better than that for me? It doesn't matter for me with the escalation stuff because that's why I'm going for the Titan Mark, the class item, because it has no stats associated with it. It just the item, the element, But because I have that same thought for like the Titan armor on the world on Titan the destination. That has some cool armor on it that's unique looking, but it will never, like you said, drop at a stat that you would ever want to use. So what if instead of you have this baseline that keeps going up, because even that would just be a baseline, you'd want the best, what if you from pinnacle activities got some sort of item that you could use and your next armor drop was a like pinnacle style stat armor thing or something like that. I would prefer for armor to just like drop in a way that you could use it as an ornament, particularly, that way you could use it for whatever, but I know that's not possible for everything. That would overload the ornament system, I feel like. But it would be cool if you had some item that you could just apply to what activity you want. Because like I had all the black armory stuff. I've been doing forges to try and get something in particular, and none of the armor I receive, even though it looks really unique, I would ever use, and that is kind of sad.
Yeah, I mean, there definitely needs to be some type of change that goes in to help mitigate that RNG a little bit, or make it more, I don't know if reasonable is a word or favorable. I mean, maybe both, but
yeah, I would love it even if there was like a 0.5%, 0.2% chance that any drop could just be a pinnacle stat level, light level.
That would be better too. Yeah,
that would be better than what we have now, and that would make every drop, instead of just deleting every drop you get from every activity outside of pinnacle, an automatic delete. You might like it, so that would be cool.
Yeah, that would be easily better than what we have now. But yeah.
So outside of outside of those weapon changes and stuff, there wasn't like much else in the TWAB, but I know there's a lot going on in PvP talk this week, Wendler, that I kind of wanted to get your opinion on, because I know you've been on the show before talking about changes that you would like to see in the playlists and everything, and in particular, Dylan DMG was reaching out talking about not only the comp scene right now, like how we're all liking 3v3 survival, but or not survival, survival, but also how we're liking 3v3 elimination and how the maps were doing and all of that. So I just wanted to pick y'all's brain on it. I know I've played a lot of elimination. I know I've played a lot of comp even this season, probably maybe the most I've played, because it's just really fun. But Wendler, I guess we'll start with you.
Let me say something real quick, only because two things real quick. You mentioned DMG's tweet. Maybe this is very anecdotal, and I didn't look through everything, but as I glanced through the first responses, a lot of the ones that he was responding to were people mentioning Clash instead of survival, or included with survival in the like comp-ish playlist, and he was responding with like, okay, why do you think Clash should be in there? I saw him
Yes.
respond to a lot of those, which I thought was interesting.
Uh-huh.
Maybe it doesn't mean anything, but maybe it's something they've talked about or that they have seen brought up a lot. The other thing, I have to step away for just a minute. The only reason I didn't quietly do this is because the timing is right as we're letting Wendler start his like thing,
Yes.
and I didn't want it to seem like I was like, well, fuck this. Wendler's talking. I'm leaving.
It did kind of look that way.
I know, and that's why I wanted to stop, because I am not a dick. I mean, I am a dick, but you know, I'll be back. But I just want to point out it has nothing to do with the fact that we're in Wendler's bread and butter. here.
Sure, bud.
I'll kick you from this call. Ask Lego. I've done it.
I mean,
That
Wendler
is
might
true.
kick himself from the call.
That's
I
true,
don't.
too.
Who knows tonight?
All right, I'll be right back now. Sorry.
Hey.
Have fun, Wendler.
2-1
Well-
moonshine pickles. Just saying.
Triton, real quick before Wendler, you know, because I know Wendler has stuff to say about this. Have you messed with comp at all in this season competitive?
No, I mean, comp's definitely something I'm proud. I mean, I know some people have been successful just solo queuing to get
Yeah.
to certain places in comp, but I don't think, if I want to go, because I don't have Not Forgotten, I did get enough to get. I pretty much got Luna's mostly solo with like a little bit of help at the end, just because people had offered.
Yeah.
But I don't really think that like if my goal would probably be to get there to solo queue that the whole time. So no, I haven't really done any PvP in general, no comp in general.
Okay.
So it's an interesting conversation, but I really haven't. My break coincided. We mentioned that earlier. Coincided when the Recluse was real popular, so I've actually never gone against it. And then you know what? I just never really was going up against One-Eyed Mask all that much. Didn't seem like it was the point where I was just like, oh my gosh, this is just obnoxious for me to play against. But
Gotcha.
when I was doing a lot of PvP, it was just casual sixes or something like that. I don't know. It wasn't nearly as ramp as it probably is when you're really trying to get someone to 5,500, and maybe you're using that, right? So
Yeah.
not other than listening to Wendler and thinking about too. Also, Wendler, since Ho's gone or whatever, Kobe White should probably start. I'm just saying because I just feel like that makes more sense.
I'm fine with him off the bench right now.
I mean, I
personally.
get it a little bit,
Because
but then
if he was not off the bench, we would have no bench points at this current time.
Chris Dunn's giving you no bench points. I get it,
Yeah.
but
Chris Dunn's mainly
it's a similar
there-
position, not giving you any points, but
Yeah.
I
We
think
don't-
this
we
is
don't
how
really
Ho
have
feels
bench
about
depth, but-
when Wilson starts talking about Pokemon. I feel like this is how he's like.
But so
I mean they're losing to the
guess-
Bucks right now. I mean they should. I mean they're not going to beat Milwaukee, probably in Milwaukee, but I'm just saying. Markman's not having a good game.
Yeah, marketing needs to figure it out. But I guess to start with Elim. Elim I've mostly ignored in the game, and this is just something I'm gonna wrap into, I guess, as a
Oh.
part of the
Interesting.
the whole rant.
Yeah.
I guess. The main reason I haven't touched Elimination is because I'm not a fan of how playlists are currently set up in the game. I
Hmm.
don't like that a mode that is set to test new Crucible modes has skill-based matchmaking in it,
Yeah.
because
Okay.
that's going to deter me from wanting to test the mode more than it is going to make me want to test the mode, which I'll touch into that, I guess, shortly, because
Yeah,
it kind of feeds it.
Let's stick to elimination for just
Yeah.
a moment. We'll just
From
stick
what-
on that. I'm interested though for sure.
From the main thing though, like, which I'll touch on this more as we get into it, but the reason I haven't is because a majority of feedback, which if you do go and look at the feedback that Elimination is getting, which I'm not speaking on it at all because, like I said, I haven't played it, but it's something that as to Cross brought up in his recent rant video, where the Destiny community as a whole does not know how to properly give feedback where it matters. In the relation to that I'm making to this specifically is all of the feedback for Elimination is just make it like the trials mode.
Yeah.
Just make it trials. Just have it be trials. And it's not actual feedback to the mode. It's just
Yeah.
someone jumps in, oh, I played 2 games, but I'll just take the trials mode. And like
Yeah.
that's not sufficient enough, which I'm sure
Mhm.
this is going to lead to trials, because why else would you
Yeah.
test 4 different variants of Elimination if it wasn't going to be trials?
It does feel that way.
But without going too much, like, I'm more interested in what you thought about it between the different modes, because I'm assuming you've played all 4 variants. Or
I did. I
in
might
some
have
matter.
missed 1 week, but I think I can cover it pretty well by the way that I describe my feedback.
So,
okay, well, I'll go into mine for a second then, because I did like, and I'll preface it with I had one like main like point of the feedback, and if I could like summarize everything together of how I felt about Elimination, it would be that, and it I could see how it could sound like I'm talking about Trials, but it, because a lot of it goes that direction, but I think I can explain why I feel that way. And the reason is because I feel that the greater variety in the map locations that we engage, the more exciting the games become. And with an objective like say like heavy, or say player respawns or player orbs that we're guarding, if there's not a central objective that happens right away, it creates more variety and gives diversity to every match based on the freedom the player has to move around the map and play with their weapons that they like or their locations that they like, and they can choose those rather than it being circled around an objective. And so I thought about that a lot while I was playing Elimination, and that's why I found that I feel like I don't know if I played week 3 or week 4. I know I played those weeks with no heavy, but I played a lot of week 1 and week 2, where the heavy spawned at 90 seconds, and where the orb would like at first you only had the tokens, and then you had one where you didn't have tokens, you could just res as much as you want. And I really liked the res as much as you want, because you would have somebody die and then they'd res. You just constantly had to watch reses.
It was a scaling factor, right? It was a scaling respawn.
I was saying the timers got longer, like D1.
Yes, that happened too. But the reason I liked it so much is I thought the timers felt right. It wasn't like people were respawning all the time, like in D1 at that time where
before they made that change.
Yeah. So it didn't feel like that. It felt like a long enough time, and they would die in different spots of the map that then became mini objectives that you had to guard to make sure they don't get the res, and that was always different depending on the player, and that made it exciting. I also, in week 1 and 2, honestly didn't mind heavy as much as everybody made it out to be a big deal. Like, it was kind of fine, but I just enjoyed week 3 and 4 better, because I did find that people became more central when they had heavy to go to. Not everyone, because not everyone has the mindset of like, I need to guard this. But most good players would have that mindset. And so I found week 3 and 4 more enjoyable. So that's kind of my full thoughts on it, I feel like.
Yep. I'm with you. Yep.
The one I do want to point out, and one thing that I wrote whenever I did submit like some feedback to Bina and Reddit, was that I know that this can cause like more player freedom causes potentially slower games. Like, people can choose to play slower. And in D1, a lot of people complain that, oh, it's so slow when they camp in the back or when this happens. But to me, it creates more variety, and the tension of like waiting to see who's going to make the first move in Elimination, like that was kind of the fun of Trials, was what's going to happen. Even if there's only one guy alive, everybody's watching him, and like, who's going to make the first move? Is he going to do this 1v3? Like, I like that tension. So less objective stuff is fine to me. I like the longer tension. I completely understand and would accept somebody's feedback who just thought it was too slow. Like, that's an okay feedback.
I think a lot of that comes from like you mentioned, like specifically with like 1v3s, like, is this person like, but I think the big complaints are more as a team play style. Like, for instance, Burning Shrine in Destiny 1, when people used to just sit outside in that sun, and there was really no way to push them. I mean, there wasn't no way, but it was a difficult like push, and you couldn't see them, and it became this, well, we're just going to sit in the sun until we have to move because of zone, or until we get a pick or whatever. And I think that's where it comes from. So it's kind of a, pick your poison type of thing.
Yeah.
Do you leave the freedom and let teams for an entire round play that way? Because if you don't, then yeah, you do cut down like 1v3s and like playing that slow. Because really, you know, the biggest way to win a 1v3 isn't to just run in there. It's to back off and bait 1v1. So you need a little bit of time to do that.
Exactly.
So, you know, getting rid of one playstyle, we were forcing one playstyle is going to get rid of the other one.
Yeah.
In a way. So it's an interesting dynamic. So I see both sides of that one.
Mm-hmm. I definitely land on one side very heavy. Player freedom. And I don't know. I feel like we looked back on those times in D1 or when they were happening, we were like, oh, that was so frustrating. But I would give anything to have that tension in D2 right now for me.
It's something that comes with the territory of a one life Slayer game mode that will happen.
Yes.
You're going to have people that inevitably slow down and play super slow, and you're not going to like it. But that's just the reality when you put a mode like that. That is what people have to deal with, which, again, I'll get into more once we get past it. But
I just thought of something that I never thought of before. What if, because heavy has always been the thing that spawns in the middle, but special ammo is limited. You don't have unlimited special ammo. What if a special ammo box like spawned and like just some sort of, because the advantage to getting heavy is so big, you know, I don't know. It just, whatever team gets it has such an advantage, and they probably had the advantage because they won that fight to get it anyway. I don't know. Just that whole dichotomy feels weird to me in Elimination, and that's why it felt better. Another reason it felt better gone, other than restricting.
Do you know what I actually? God.
I was gonna say in D1 they had special ammo boxes, but all that resulted really in was 1 minute of you playing, waiting. Actually, I think it was
I didn't like that.
It was like 30 to 45 seconds, I think, where you'd wait. You'd pull a box, you get 7 rounds, and then you'd make your first engagement on whatever lane it was. So
well, that was when you didn't spawn with it. I don't think Lego's saying get rid of heavy.
I want to make crystal clear. I'm not saying don't spawn with special. I don't want that.
But there's still people out there, and I'm not saying whether I agree or disagree, that still think even right now special can be too plentiful just because of, you know, scavenger perks or different things. So that's also a fine line. But the one thing, just going back real quick, Wendler made a really good point of something I just saw in a completely different game. You know, you mentioned, Wendler, with anything with like a one life like Slayer mode like that, you're gonna have people who play slow and blah blah blah. And it's interesting because I was just watching, if anyone follows any PUBG on Twitch, I was watching Choco Taco the other day, and he was playing duos with someone, and he was talking about, they found a guy, like, they knew he was around, and he was just kind of standing on the steps, like, leaned, ready to, like, shoot a shotgun. Choco came in the other way and killed him. But he was like, no, here's exactly what I was talking about, because I guess he'd been having this conversation earlier. He was like, that's a fine play. He was like, I'm not going to shit on that guy. If you're trying to win this game, that's a smart play. He was like, the problem is, if everyone played like that all the time, and I don't mean for tournaments and stuff, that's one thing. You're playing for money. You play your best life. He was like, but if every person on the map played to win like that, it would be the most boring game of all time, because most of the time your best play is to, like, kind of like a Destiny, bait 1v1s, bait corners, but that's a much slower game. But it brings up the same point. If you're really trying to win, like Choco was saying, like, they like to run around and, like, frag out and try to get kills. He was like, I don't care if I die. Like, I want to run around and have fun. But if you're trying to win, you are going to play slower. You're going to play more careful. And if everybody's doing that, it becomes a slow, boring game, is the problem.
And you have two spectrums with that too, just real quick before we get back on the D2 talk. Because like with Apex, for example, Apex has the opposite problem. Whereas with PUBG, it's kind of a slow pace. Like you work your way, you're in an area, you clear it. You know, it's slow. But with Apex, because I've played a ton of Apex. Like Apex is probably one of the most played games I have on PC.
Yeah.
As soon as you hear shots in Apex, it's immediate beeline. So if you're in like a top 5 situation, it's not, okay, we hear some shots here, let's move in. It's, I mean, kind of, but it's just beeline. So your top 5 situation, as soon as team 1 fires, the other 4 teams are all converging, and you kind of have a cluster to that finish. So there's like 2 spectrums with this, I guess, One Life-esque mode, if that makes sense. I'm hoping this comes off somewhat clear, where you either have the really, really slow play, or you have the over aggro play where every team doesn't want to be that one team, so they wait and then they all kind of pounce on it at the same time.
Yeah.
Right,
It's a little
but
different 'cause
even
it's multiple teams, but Hove.
but even in that, I'm sorry, guys, because this is all going off
no,
the same
keep
thing.
going, keep going.
Even with that though, Wenny, like PUBG is the same in the sense that, and Lego, we play this enough. You're like, I don't want to fire at this guy yet because these last 3 teams we know we're all going to come down on us. Even though it plays slower, it's the same.
Yeah.
It is,
In Apex, even if the style has become like that most of the time everyone does run to that and fight, still, if your only thing is winning, you're gonna be that one team that goes, they're all gonna fight. Let's fucking watch them and then third party them. Like, and that's the slow play. Like, that's almost always, like you said, in a one life, Slayer thing. That's always gonna be your best play. You don't want to be the first one out in the open. You don't want to be running around in a fight.
Yeah. Like, even in Halo, like Halo and MLG Slayer, like, if it's 48, 49, 48, 48, teams literally turtle. They do not move because, especially in Halo, numbers matters. Like, if you're 4-on-3, you immediately have advantage, you capitalize on it. So it's just, in all retrospect. So I guess the main thing I was trying to get at is people cannot complain about.
No, I mean, I was agreeing with you completely. My whole point was agreeing with you.
Complaining. I wasn't saying you guys were complaining, but just in general, where people go, "Oh man, it's too slow." Like, yeah, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I wanted to add on to the way that Hove was talking about how, this is just the nature of staying back and stuff. But I wanted to even zoom out a little bit further about how this game mode changed the meta in D1. Like, Trials was the pinnacle and everything kind of rained down from that in normal PvP. Right now in PvP, any like comp stuff, heavy has been the main objective in comp. Like, you got to control heavy, you got to control that center room, and that makes you play closer play style shotguns and stuff because you're not going to control that, like maybe one guy on a sniper or something like that. But in Trials, with the one life and in the slower play style, snipers were really big because you don't want to, like, shotguns are good but risky because you're moving closer, and if you get that pick with the sniper and even in a 1v3, you just make that real quick, like, get out, get the pick, versus the risk of moving in. Like, snipers were really big in Trials and Elimination game mode for that reason. And if, Trials comes to D2 and this game mode stays like at that medium slower pace, which it doesn't even feel that way right now. Shotguns and like high level mobility is really in Destiny right now. But if it gets a little slower because of Trials, that could be good for just the state Crucible in general right now, with the diversity of weapons and more people using different things. Because right now Destiny's really fast. Like, I don't know if y'all feel that, but I've never felt like any game was slow other than maybe competitive when we had maybe.
My biggest fear for Trials resolves in deeper game issues currently than what Trials would currently provide. Like, with how, for example, if you look at Sacred Providence, the new raid pulse, that's essentially a better blast furnace by like night and day.
Yeah.
The problem you have in the game right now, and again, without going too much into it, because I don't want to cut off from like DMG asking about maps and how people feel about comp, but
I do want to add to that.
The game right now, even in survival, and with all the Slayer modes, it benefits people with the ability to sit back with these pulses, with these longer range weapons. Because, like, from my PC experience, snipers are very much relevant, just like they were in Trials, where you have someone that gets first pick, and then teams then get heavy, and then they either sit or they snowball with heavy. But that Trials playstyle is very much relevant, at least on PC comp. Okay. I'm not sure how different that is from console comp, because I've heard from TV
it sometimes is. Yeah.
That beats me out there. But my fear with like elimination in this game is what it will result in is, if we take Widow's Court as the example, it's going to be either a sniper or one to two, maybe even 3 people running a long range pulse, and then just sitting there and beaming and beaming and beaming, which is a whole deeper issue than, because we didn't really have that in D1. You didn't have a pulse rifle that you had, like Clever Dragon, that could just nail you, like kind of like the Rapids do now. but you never really had a long range pulse that was challenging at sniper range like we had before, which we did kind of have with Clever Dragon, to be fair.
I would say you don't think, because I think pulses were always, at least at multiple points, really strong. I mean, you had a point where the messenger was the best legendary option for a primary. What was the Clever Dragon, Grasp? I mean, you had a lot of really good pulses back then, but I mean, there's still different. And I'm not saying you're totally wrong, because pulses are really strong, but like, there's still different lanes. Like, I'm thinking Widow's Court. I can think of 3 long lanes that even if they cover those, there's other ways.
And maybe it's just Elimination because I haven't played it. I'm just like hypothesizing right now what it could be. But yeah, I mean,
Hawksaw is another one. Nub said in chat.
I do see your point about pulses being strong. Real quick, jumping back to because I want to get to comp real quick before we close down the show. But with one last thing with survival or with Elimination and Crucible Labs, because maps particularly was one of the questions that DMG asked, and I felt like Widow's Court and Twilight Gap both felt really good, and I was trying to not just have my D1 blinders on, like, am I just nostalgia-ing feeling this, but I actually felt like they played better because they had more variety in my engagement. Like everybody didn't play it the same way, whereas the other map, the Vex one, I keep forgetting the name.
Convergence.
Yeah, Convergent. Oh no, Convergence.
Pantheon.
Is
which is
no, not Pantheon.
But...
That's not the one. It's the new Vex map that is brand new.
Oh.
This season. I can't remember the name of it. But anyway, that one, it played exactly the same every time, even though there was player freedom to, like, you can go a different lane, but the lanes were so tight and everybody sniped that thing or shotgunners jumped through the window every single time. It was like the same encounter over and over again, and it just got really boring really fast. Whereas Widow's Court and Twilight Gap felt really so
I really like Widow's Court.
Yeah, because we played it too, Ho. Yeah, and it was in comp too, so we got to try it there as well. What, right? It was in the comp playlist, right?
When we played it, it was the first week of Elim.
Okay. So it felt great, though.
I think
really
the first week.
It.
Quickly with... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, DMG asked about, like, maps, too, in conjunction with comp. He specifically asked for Vostok.
Oh, yeah.
But then added, how do you feel? Like, are there other maps? Are there other problems? Like, personally... I'm just gonna try and like speed run this since I don't want to talk for another 30 minutes about PvP unless you guys want to.
Yeah,
but
no, probably
not. Yeah, no.
Yeah, probably not. I'm just gonna try to speed run through everything. So like, because it all kind of wraps up together nicely anyway. But he asked like what maps need to go, and I brought up like Vostok is fine with like Mayhem or Control, but literally any other Slayer mode. Like, it's the one map where, like, you don't really want B control. You want A and C, but the sight lines to A and C are so unfair in majority of, like, every other mode. Like, Countdown, you're playing into defensive player sight lines, which no other map really offers that. But if you look further, because he asked, like, what other maps, I mentioned, like, Convergence, Bannerfall, and Wormhaven all realistically need to get removed from comp, unless they add a pure objective game mode that allows people to move. Because even though these 3 maps are all similar in where they're 3-lane maps, long range, they have pit spawns, in the way with survival is you get initial pick, you pull heavy, and then that's the game. Is off one pick. It doesn't really rotate off more than that unless a team just colossally screws up. But if you have pure objective game modes, things like Capture the Flag, things like Oddball, things like King of the Hill, even at like bare minimum, you can create kind of like what you brought up earlier with Trials, where you create rotating kind of focal points on the map that change how the game's played. So if we just throw out Citadel, like Citadel is a map you have the center lane, you have the outside where B is, and that's it. Even though you have that whole inside cave section, you never see use of it at all. But if you had King of the Hill, where the hill could be in the inside cave, and then that way it floats everyone's priority to the inside of that cave, or if it's in the center of the map, or if it's near a spawn, and you can dynamically change that. Or if you look at Firebase Echo, Firebase Echo for control is horrible. It's not fun. Awful. Whereas if you had like King of the Hill, and you had rotating hills, it wouldn't play the same way. I mean, even if they simply took B and Heavy and flipped them, so Heavy is now up top, and that 2 direct lane, and Heavy was, or sorry, B is up top, and Heavy is then in the bottom pit, that map would be night and day different too. But just the game in general has a problem where every single mode is Slayer, and that mostly contributes to nearly every problem a player has in the sandbox. Like, people want to complain about hand cannons and say that hand cannon range isn't significant, but that's not the problem. The problem is, because every mode is Slayer, it rewards 3 people to get a pulse rifle, sit in the back of the map, and not virtually move off of a pick.
Dude, I have had the like almost complete opposite experience of you with these maps, and I don't know if it's a console thing or whatever, but because pulse rifles, yeah, there were some, especially the new raid one, you know, like I faced some tough games with that. But the maps that you mentioned, like Convergence and Bannerfall and those maps, like I didn't feel any of them to be a problem. Not the way I did whenever it was Control in competitive. And so like with just survival with just 3 people, it always felt like we could turn the tide at any point if they did get, even if they got heavy, because it's just 1 rocket shot, 1 Wardcliff shot. It wasn't like, oh, here's 2, and then if they die, they get another one, or heavy machine gun or whatever. None of that seems to be as much of a problem as it was before. And Bannerfall especially, I played that one a lot this season for whatever reason, and it always felt different, like playing inside, playing outside, and playing the mid. One of our last games getting Bagu to 5,500 was Bannerfall, and they pulled heavy machine gun on the last round. And I was real worried about that because I had just Bagu got 1 guy, and then I was like, oh no, where's that heavy machine gun guy? And I like turned around and got a headshot snipe on him, and it just felt so like, it felt like you could make those turns in the game like fairly, not easily, but like it could happen if you were really on the top of your game. I can see why you would want to use something like King of the Hill to diversify the playstyle on the map, but I just didn't experience any of those problems that you are talking about for those maps in particular. And I would actually personally want to play comp less if it was more objective based, like, because I felt like having control and having countdown in competitive was really like negative towards my experience.
To be fair,
neither of those are strictly objective modes. Yeah,
neither of them are objective modes.
No,
when I say objective, I'm suggesting a mode where if you want to win the game, like just for simplicity point, imagine countdown.
Basically, just saying, hold on, kills don't matter is basically what it is. There is an objective, like and that is it. Rift was one. Well, zone control was one.
Rift kind of was, because you would get minor points for kills, and then you would have the major dunk that would go off.
Zone control.
Like, zone control is a big one that the game doesn't see any use of, because it's only in that random 4s rotator, which honestly they need to change that into a 4s playlist and not a rotator, but that's a whole different point. But yeah, the game needs more pure objective modes to diversify the game, because every mode in the game is Slayer or Slayer in some shape or way or form. We have 2 pure objective modes. One is Lockdown, which is zone control, and the other one is Breakthrough, which essentially flopped, and they honestly need to do another change, because Breakthrough, while it is a pure objective mode, does not benefit either team to actually play the objective. You're better off just ignoring the objective still.
Yeah, like Countdown, how often is a round won by the bomb?
Yeah,
maybe
Countdown
once a
is
game.
Just glorified elimination is what Countdown is,
right?
In a nutshell. But if the game incorporated, like if we just take a list of all the maps that are currently frustrating for people, no matter what side you're on, like if you hate Vostok, if you hate Wormhaven, if you hate Citadel, whatever, and you incorporated a pure objective mode, these maps would see use to which they don't work in maybe Slayer, but they work with objective mode because it rotates these kind of hot points on the map.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, like, I would honestly rather play Capture the Flag in D2 where someone literally pockets a Dawnblade to counter a flag carrier, which if someone wants to do that, go for it, than I ever would playing a mode that's Jade Rabbits with wall hacks, one tapping to the head, which you can't realistically control.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I think too many people look at every mode, and maybe it's because there's a lack of objective modes and people have been like itching for one. But like stuff like that isn't meant to be like that's thrown in there as like a rotator or something special, and it's supposed to be silly. It's supposed to be like
for sure.
You're not supposed to take it seriously, and too many people, and I'm not even saying you, but you see that like, oh, this is dumb because this happens and this. Yeah, but it doesn't happen anywhere else. So it's just something to fuck around. Like, I don't know. I just don't see the big deal with that.
I would enjoy it more as a fuck around mode if it wasn't what literally every lobby for that mode is. Like with Mayhem, yeah, you can make a conversation that like, okay, there's a lot of Blade Barrages, but you still see a lot of other supers in Mayhem to offset that. So it's not always irritating. Whereas with Momentum Control, it's literally high impact scout, wall hacks. Yeah. And that is the game mode.
Well,
which people want to compare it to SWAT, but if they were even gonna go the SWAT route with it, like maybe they needed to make specific loadouts for that mode when it's in rotation.
Yeah.
That's honestly what they want to do. But
I just don't want to get too off track here because we started talking about I know where objective game mode is like one of the main critiques for competitive, but there's so much to cover in competitive, and I don't want to go all night. This isn't a drag on you, Wendler. This is like
Lego,
all of us. Like
you couldn't go all night anyway.
I will not comment on that. But Wendler, so objective was like one of your main things with comp and with the map, map usage and everything, and for how the maps feel. But to some of the big points that Dylan was talking about was just the change to survival. We talked about game types, but having it 3v3 and having a solo playlist. And I wanted to talk about that for a second and see what you thought, because for me, that kind of almost shades good light on a lot of the map design anyway. I feel because it's 3v3, that just changes the way you play a map in general, the way you play the game. And I feel like even if they had, countdown on Vostok again, it would feel different in 3v3 than it did 4v4. Even Vostok in general, if it was survival 3v3, we haven't really played that, but would it feel different now? So I'm curious what your thoughts are on just the change to 3v3 survival and how comp feels in general right now.
I think comp being threes is a great change. As Dylan kind of stated, people feel more, I guess, like the superhero kind of style, if you want to call it that, comes back, where you can make a play. In threes, it's a lot more valid because fours is natively more team-based, where threes, you have more freedom to do solo things. But, because my whole response to that was, like, I love threes. It was great change. But I still, I don't even necessarily want Clash. Like, I understand why people want Clash, because when they freelance, if they frag 30 kills, they can somewhat make up if a teammate bottom frags or however they want to look at it. But it's just, it just goes back to the same point where some of the maps work, some of them, which is more opinionated, don't. But if they had more objective modes, it wouldn't make the game feel as bland. Like, I don't have a problem with it being survival. That's great. But long term, if you're going to ask me 2 seasons from now, am I going to be content with playing survival and then maybe Clash as my comp game modes? I'll tell you no, because it's going to be extremely dull. Whereas if they rotate or test some of these more objective modes, it would be more refreshing to cycle back around to these Slayer-based game modes. Like, the reason, even if you look at Call of Duty back in the day, Call of Duty, you had Demolition, which was or Headquarters, which was your more kind of mix of Slayer with objective. You had Hardpoint, which was arguably a fan favorite mode, which is heavy objective because it's essentially King of the Hill. And then you had the Slayer modes, and that's what made the game fresh. If you look at Halo was the same way. You had Slayer, you had King of the Hill, you had Capture the Flag, you had Oddball. You had these mix of Slayer and objective modes to keep the game fresh, and that is the biggest thing that Destiny 2 lacks right now. Is there's nothing to separate and provide more. What's the word? It's not varied.
There's variety. I mean,
variety.
really.
Yes. Yeah, variety. Like, even if you go and look through, like in a private match sometime, you look through the modes we actually have at this point, it's honestly disappointing. And to me, in my opinion, it's one of the main reasons, like outside of general game balance, it's one of the main reasons that Destiny 2 comp, like high level play, like where you see like Lumi and, Sonic and insert whoever, it's not as fun to watch as other modes. Is because what are we playing today? Oh, we're playing Clash best of 3.
Yeah.
What's the finals? Oh, it's a Clash best of 3.
Yeah.
Whereas if you look at these other modes, they have these different modes that maybe a team is really good at King of the Hill, and you just,
it's really interesting that our 2 point, like, we both want variety in this game to make it fun. My big thing with mainly elimination, but it goes for comp too. My big thing is like variety through player freedom, and your big thing is variety through game design, like game mode design. And not like the thing you're gonna die on the hill, but one of the things you're advocating for in the game right now. And that's just interesting to see that we both want variety. It just comes across different ways.
I just think though that like the variety you're both talking about is like a totally different thing. Like,
oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
Like I would probably still play mostly like Slayer type modes. A lot more, like still a lot more if we got a bunch of objective modes, but I do see the benefit and the positives of them and why we would need them. Yeah. Whereas like I think your thing with saying, variety as far as player freedom is still like, it's still like the freedom of how you're going to run around and kill everybody. Like it's still, but that's what I mean. But like, it's still the same thing. And that's, do you know what I mean? Like it may change the way you do it, but you still have the same goal.
It's kind of
one of the
I guess so.
Real quick, like one of the main complaints right now, which obviously this might be more of a PC thing, is the way people can play and then play passive, right? Whereas if you have a pure objective mode, so just theoretically, let's throw in King of the Hill, you're going to have a guaranteed pulse probably on your team because you need to cover long range. But you're still going to have a greater priority in having some type of close quarters player, and your pulse guy is going to have some type of range to cover. You're going to have more team play within the 3's realm that way, or even if they still choose to put this on 4s. Obviously, this is all hypothetical because we don't even know what they're going to do. But just in terms of a team dynamic, like if me and you were on a team and you're running your fusion and you're like, okay, I'm going to run a pulse, kind of lock this down, and then I have my fusion as my pocket backup. And then I would go, okay, I'll run the shotgun then and a hand cannon because I need to make sure that I'm on the hill. Or it's kind of like the same dynamic with how COD operates, I think would be the closest comparison more than Halo. Because in Call of Duty at a high level, when they would run Hardpoint and TDM and whatever, is you would have a guaranteed AR user to cover long range, and then you had a close quarters sub machine gun guy to cover the more tighter close quarters range, and that's how your team would operate.
Real quick, Hove, before, because I want to get into Hove, what you feel about comp. I know you could talk about what they're saying too, but just like your general opinion of it, because we haven't talked really about that. I feel like, and I know you've played like a good bit of it this season.
I've talked about it plenty of times on here.
And Triton, I know you said you haven't jumped into it yet. I just know we're running short on time, and so I wanted to kind of wrap up a few things here. I had something else to say about Wendler's thing because I was trying to wrap that up too, but I forgot what it was just now. Go ahead.
I'll wrap it up
Go ahead.
because
Yeah.
I think that it in a way it comes down to how much Bungie goes back to kind of pushing Destiny as some sort of competitive game, because if you look at the games that have high level comp, they are very objective based.
Oh.
But if they don't care about that and they just keep PvP just being this just whatever, I don't think they're going to institute a lot of that stuff.
I will say the game can have objective modes without it being competitive.
I think it can too. I just think that that's one of the things that may influence like whether they do it or not. Like, do we want to work on these objective modes for that reason? Well, whatever. Go ahead.
Real quick, Wendler, I wanted to. This is just like a yes or no kind of answer. I was just curious, the PC versus the PS4 playstyle, because you've mentioned a lot about like passive play, and honestly, like in 3 different people helping them to 5500 playing a limb, I've come across like maybe a handful of teams that are passive like in their play style, and we normally stomp them because of how passive they are. They're not like reaching out more into the map. Is that like a really big thing on PC right now?
Yes and no. It depends. Okay. I will say in terms of helping people with comp, I think the whole comp matchmaking in 3s right now is kind of busted on both ends. But again, that's like a whole nother topic to get into. But
Okay.
I took data on solo queue mainly, and then Hovey mentioned with him running with TV that they purposely went in with, it was like him, Joey, and TV, which obviously
and
is
Jesus
3 really
and
good
Barack
people.
Obama and
but obviously that's 3 really good players, but they purposely went into comp. They were all legend ranked to get legend level matches, and they did not get one match that was near that level at the time. But again, that's a whole separate point that I think applies into that issue. Yeah. The only quick thing I guess just to close my point on is, I think a lot of, and this has nothing to do with high level creators, but I think the problem resonates with something that Azatec did bring up, in that the Destiny community does not know how to appropriately gauge their feedback and get that out to something that is reasonable for Bungie to break down and for Bungie to understand exactly what problems. And it has, but like even the issue right now is a lot of people are trying to link that the reason PvP is replayable is because there's not enough rewards. And I don't think people understand that it doesn't matter if they add another gun at legend rank, or if whatever they add that is temporary, it's a band-aid fix to something that is a foundational problem, which the game PvP still has a foundational problem of replayability compared to D1.
Well, I disagree some, but we don't have time to keep arguing about it. Like I it's an interesting conversation because I see that point, but I do like disagree somewhat because I feel like PvP is in a really good state, but I can see how like people think there's still like foundational problems that need to be fixed. We don't have time to continue talking about it. I know we could go on forever about it,
Not all
but
night,
if
though.
you've enjoyed listening to Wendler, where can they find you, man?
You can find me on Twitter at twitter.com/Wendler34. My YouTube, which I think it's just _Wendler34. I think I have my own URL. It's not hard to find me there anymore. And then I stream on Twitch or Mixer, both at Wendler. So usually my Twitter just directly says where I'm streaming to. Nice. I don't really have a set one place or the other, but yeah.
Cool.
Where they find you, Hove?
What? I guess every Thursday night at 9, doing this live, twitch.tv/Hove76 and Twitter, also Hove76. I don't know. Lego, Triton, Wilson.
Thank you, Hove.
I don't know.
Well, real quick, if you're looking to find me, you can find me at me, Lego, aka Lego LE Flash, at Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, at Lego LE Flash. Triton, where can they find you, man?
Yep, mainly on Twitter. Triton, please, all one word, please be in PLZ.
And if you're looking to find out more about Team Resolute, you can find us at Team Resolute on Twitter. If you're looking to get some microphones and headphones, you go to bluemic.com and use code RezoCast at the checkout, 20% discount. And that's it for this week. Thanks for joining us. Join the Discord if you're not in there. Let's talk some Destiny. Let's play some games. Let's get to 5,500. Until next time, y'all. GG.
Bye.